Welcome to another episode of Terror Tarot here on Rue Morgue TV. My name is Laura Hochstead. I am an intern here at Rue Morgue and a tarot card reader. And on this show, we look at the use of tarot cards in horror movies. I'm really excited to talk about this film today because it really is the film that kind of gave me the idea for this series in the first place. I remember when I was watching it, there's a scene with a huge tarot spread, and I also noticed that there was a lot of tarot imagery kind of peppered throughout the film. And so this was kind of the film that gave birth to the idea of tarot. So without further ado, today we are going to be talking about William Peter Blatty's 1990 film.
The real terror is back. George C. Scott in William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist III.
The film was released in 1990 and sees the return of William Peter Blatty as the writer-director. In this film, we do not see the return of Linda Blair playing Regan MacNeil, but we do see a few characters coming back. One of those being Lieutenant Kinderman, this time played by George C. Scott. We also see the return of Father Dyer, played by Ed Flanders, and reprising his role as Damien Karras and Patient X is Jason Miller, with the addition of Brad Dourif playing the Gemini Killer.
Remember Karen? Little ribbons in her hair, yellow ribbons.
The film follows Lieutenant Kinderman as he is investigating the murder of a 12-year-old boy, as well as a priest that was decapitated in a church. And through his investigation, he realizes that some of the ways in which these crimes were committed resemble that of a famed serial killer called the Gemini Killer.
The Gemini Killer's been dead for 15 years.
Who was speaking to you?
But he's dead.
He should live so long. And the autopsy, when, please?
Tomorrow.
And tomorrow. Tomorrow.
His investigation leads him to a hospital where he discovers that his old friend Damien Karras, or Patient X, has been imprisoned and believes himself to be the Gemini Killer.
The thing is, Lieutenant,
Yes?
he says he's the Gemini Killer.
What we learn throughout the film is that the Gemini Killer can actually transfer bodies and can possess other people to commit his murders. And the film kind of climaxes with the Gemini Killer taking the form of this older woman and trying to kill Kinderman and his family, but she's ultimately stopped.
Bill, now! Shoot now! Kill me now!
In an early scene, Lieutenant Kinderman is dreaming. And in this dream, we see he's kind of wandering around this sort of liminal space. Lieutenant Kinderman finds the 12-year-old boy whose murder he's investigating. And we also see Father Dyer getting a tarot reading by an angel. The cards that come up in this scene are Judgment, the Emperor, the World, the Devil, and the Hanged Man. This is very interesting to me as a tarot reader because all of the cards that are shown in this scene are what we call major arcana cards. With major arcana cards, there are less of them in the tarot deck, and these ones are usually based on larger archetypes or indicative of bigger life events. If we're thinking about everything that Lieutenant Kinderman has been dealing with within the film, he's investigating these heinous murders and it's based on this serial killer. It just feels like every step is perilous and he's trying to figure this all out together. So I feel like this is representative of that and his struggle right now in the film.
I know nothing, except I must go on killing Daddy. I must shame him.
The first card that we see is the Judgment card. If we were to take all of the tarot cards in the deck and lay them out from first to last, the last card in the tarot deck is the Judgment card. So the archetype there is getting to Heaven's Gate and facing your final judgment. So in this card, you're kind of have to face all of the choices you made in this life and kind of reconcile those within yourself. So it's not so much an external judgment, but it's one of introspection and self-reflection. How this card relates to what he's going through right now, I see this as physically mirroring his dream, where we see these people kind of stuck in this purgatory where they can't really go on to heaven yet because they're having to deal with everything that they've faced in their life. Very much so, the 12-year-old boy cannot pass on until his crime has been solved by Kinderman, metaphorically in his dream. The next card is the Emperor card, and this is the archetype of kind of the ultimate leader. And I believe this is supposed to be representative of Kinderman himself. The Emperor is very hard-headed. It's kind of like exactly my way or the highway kind of mentality. Just this strong leader that's just going to kind of blaze through and really try and take control. The World card is an interesting one. And I think it also is representative of this liminal space that the spirits or Kinderman in his dream are occupying. Because what we see on the card is there's this woman floating kind of high above the world. And the World card asks us to have a different perspective on what we're dealing with. So when we're kind of in the weeds, when we're in the thick of it, we can't really see too far ahead. But if we pull back and we kind of take this outsider's perspective to look at everything from a higher plane, we might have a better understanding of what we need to do. So I think this card is kind of asking Kinderman to do that, to step back from seeing things very logically and how he thinks it is, and be more open to this idea of, maybe there is a supernatural element that he'll have to face in order to solve these crimes. The next card that we see is the Devil card. And I feel like in past episodes of Terror Tarot, we've seen this card used by filmmakers to kind of scare the viewer, like, ooh, it's the Devil card or the Death card. But for this scene specifically, I do see it as serving to foreshadow the plot. What we see on the card itself is a devil overseeing two people who are chained to this pillar. Seeing this kind of mirroring of these two people could kind of represent the Gemini killer, and the fact that these forces of evil are kind of overarching or controlling the Gemini killer, and how it jumps from body to body to commit these crimes.
Tell the press that I am the Gemini lieutenant, or I will punish you.
Punish me?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Do you dance?
What do you mean?
The last card is the Hanged Man, and at this point in the tarot reading, we see the tarot card reader putting this card down over and over and over again. And I think that is definitely on purpose to draw our attention to this card and this archetype. The Hanged Man, what we see on the card is this person hung by their foot with their arms behind their back and their leg kind of relaxed to the side. Now, this person, you would think, is in a lot of pain because they're being hung upside down, but the facial expression is one of contentment. So this card kind of talks about being at a stalemate or in a holding pattern, but of one's own making. So I see this card representing Kinderman in that he's kind of trying to solve these crimes. He's always finding himself maybe one step behind what's happening next. And so he's kind of stuck in this holding pattern, like I said, waiting until he has the ability or knowledge to cut himself down so that he can progress forward. The Hanged Man is also featured very prominently in another scene featuring Lieutenant Kinderman talking with this doctor at the hospital. And we see it, it's a quite large framed photo featured very prominently in the background. I really feel like this is really trying to hammer home this idea of stuckness that Lieutenant Kinderman is feeling at this point in the investigation. And having it featured not only in the dream, but kind of coming through to real life with him as well is very interesting. That idea that what he experiences in his dream is now filtering through into the real world in terms of him seeing the dead boy and getting this tarot reading and then trying to figure out who this Gemini killer is. We're seeing that coming into the real world now when he's facing the Gemini killer at the hospital.
Off comes the head without spilling one single drop of blood. Now, I call that showmanship, Lieutenant. Then, of course, no one notices. Pearls before sun.
So overall, I feel like the film used tarot in a really creative and interesting way. Seeing these tarot cards come out and teaching Lieutenant Kinderman about what he's about to face, about what he has to go through. I just thought it was very purposeful and very well done.
It is he who commands you. He who once stilled the sea and the storm. He who flung you from heaven to the depths of hell. You robber of life.
That does it for another episode of Terror Tarot here on Roomwork TV. And today's episode was very special to me. It was the film that really launched this idea for Terror Tarot. But I also wanted to dedicate this episode to my dad. He was my biggest supporter. He always watched these episodes, and he was the first person that I watched horror movies with. So this one is for him. So thank you for joining me on this special episode of Terror Tarot for Roomwork TV. Let me know in the comments below what you thought, and if you have any ideas for upcoming episodes. And make sure that you like and subscribe to Roomwork TV so you don't miss a video. And join me next time, and we'll see what's in the cards. So here's the plot.
Why is that funny?
It's
I don't know what it is.
the cadence. Here we go. Okay.